I would like to thank the Abu Dhabi AI Summit and TII for giving me this time and opportunity to present my latest research topic of predicting bankruptcy 3 years into the future. So this project has been done in collaboration with IM Bangalore and the Deca Laboratories. The key aspects of this project involves early bankruptcy prediction, financial ratio anomalies, key risk indicators, explainable AI, and methods to enable early interventions. So one of the concepts that intrigued me as an auditor is the concept of bankruptcy. So bankruptcy has been causing economic, social, political disturbances impacting societies at large. So being an auditor and an AI professional, my motivation was to come up with a project which can possibly identify methods using AI to alert board members, investors, lenders to anticipate a bankruptcy coming their way. So, is there a method to spot bankruptcy much earlier than its actual occurrence? So, one of the concepts in terms of using structured data information using financial ratios. So, financial ratios represents the health of an organization in terms of how profitable, how efficient, what is the turnover, what the leverage, and so on and so forth. So, using the financial ratios, we are able to we want to identify what are the methods, what are the aspects which is tending towards bankruptcy, what are the factors within those financial ratios which is contributing to bankruptcy, which might be occurring to an organization about few years into the future. The second dimension was the unstructured information in terms of natural language processing. So you a lot of details of the company's health is also reflected using the annual reports, the investor information, the stock exchange reporting, the Twitter information, and all of these things. So we wanted to use the methods using natural language processing methods, which I'll take you through a few slides, in terms of how to spot a financial sentiment which could possibly indicate a company is tending towards bankruptcy. So usage of cloud and orchestration was used heavily in this particular project. The first dimension using structured data. So we had collected about 500 companies gotten bankrupt for the period of 10 years. So we had labeled the year of bankruptcy, the year 2 years earlier to bankruptcy, just to see whether the model can predict the earlier occurrence of bankruptcy coming the way. We also collected about a thousand plus companies are non-bankrupt just to make sure that the balance is equitable. Using anomaly detection techniques, PyOD libraries, we're able to identify the combination of ratios which is tending towards overall bankruptcy. So, are there any ratios within those ratio segments which is not compatible with each other? Is it showing a certain type of tendency, which means that certain ratios are abnormal in nature, which is showing up 2 to 3 years earlier to a bankruptcy occurrence? So the first dimension in terms of unsupervised machine learning methods were possibly used, and within that, the explainability factor was also there. The reason why it is showing an anomaly, it could be angular-based anomaly, it could be isolation forest, it could be encoder-based anomaly detection methods, or in terms of ensemble methods to identify why a company is tending towards bankruptcy and are the indications showing earlier to the bankruptcy is coming into effect. The second dimension in terms of trying to supervise the X to Y variability, where we try to label the data set 2 years earlier prior, and we try to use a lot of machine learning methods, could be XGBoost, random forest, gradient boost, and neural networks, and then to predict are we able to have a wide range of parameters in terms of F1 score, recall, and precision, which are going to be compatible to the actual results. We realized that the results were not all that comparable. So we went back to the data, started collecting more data, and started labeling the data in a certain manner to make sure that the data-centric approach was utilized than the model-centric approach. To our satisfaction, it gave us good results, which I will take you through the next few slides. We used the TensorFlow methodology, the PyCaret methodology for the explainable AI method. So explainable AI was able to pinpoint characteristics, attributes which are specific, which are tending, which saying why a model is choosing a particular company to be getting it bankrupt. So we're able to identify particular matters which were there in terms of the explainable AI parameters. The last dimension, which is going to be very critical in terms of unsupervised machine learning method, we use the BERT, FinBERT, ESG BERT in terms of transform architecture to identify the financial sentiment, which is possibly indicating that a company is tending towards bankruptcy, which is not at the financial records of information. Then you look at the GPT-3. So GPT-3 was used in terms of condense large volumes of data into contextual text, which was then fed into the BERT, FinBERT, and ESG model, which was able to predict the financial sentiment as we speak. The accuracy of the model was pretty good. It's from 85% to 95% in terms of accuracy, precision, recall, and FN score. So largely, the model did pretty well when we adopted a data-centric approach. Even if you look at the confusion matrix, except for a few off calls, the confusion matrix did pretty well. And this is where the major aspects comes into place. The ratios can be divided into five major categories. So margin, activity, yield to debt, turnover, and profitability. So within those ratio types, the model is able to predict, which are the most category of ratios just contributing towards a bankruptcy, which is determined on various sectors. He's got entertainment, you have real estate, we have a project sector, banking sector, so on and so forth. So every sector had a ratio of significance, a feature of significance, which means that for a certain company in a certain sector, the dominance of a certain ratio were much more prevalent, which is contributing to bankruptcy or not doing well in the whole scheme of things. Using explainable AI, the sharply values, we're able to identify what type of ratio and which combination of ratios are contributing towards bankruptcy. So this is a highlight of the whole project, where we're able to call a certain company which is tending or not tending towards bankruptcy and able to clearly identify what are the factors which left unattended could lead to an overall bankruptcy. So these could enable early intervention. Say, for example, your total liability and total assets, which means that assets not being put to proper use. In terms of quick ratio, not performing pretty well, which means that the working capital is not pretty working pretty well. So this can enable advisors, bankers, government institutions to enable particular specific interventions in companies and make sure the companies having particular KPIs to monitor them and up the ante in making sure the bankruptcy doesn't kicks into the organization. The second dimension I selected was the unstructured information, your transform architecture, the BERT, FinBERT, ESG BERT, and forward-looking statements were pretty good. So we're able to condense the whole information from the annual reports, your investor information, the internet feeds, the Twitter feeds, and making a summarized concoction of the whole information of the organization and feeding that into a transform based architecture and getting specific financial sentiments which can possibly indicate that a company is tending towards bankruptcy. The combination of the structured and unstructured information was an excellent combination to predict whether the company is going to bankruptcy and what sort of specific intervention we need to be doing. So, in terms of the lessons learned, it was evident that key risk indicators exist within the financial ratios. The ratios represent the financial health of an organization, and these health were very clearly indicative. Is it the profitability? Is it the efficiency? Is it the turnover? Is it the leverage? These are indications are there. So, is it for the organization, the leaders of the organization fail to see all of these particular indicators could possibly lead to bankruptcy, lessons learned. An essential toolkit. So if it can be used as an essential toolkit for government, stock exchange, financial institutions, which can in the data deluge of the organization, it can possibly represent carve out certain companies which is tending towards bankruptcy. So early prevention of bankruptcy can prevent jobs, prevent a lot of issues which can happen into the economy, and so on and so forth. The third and the most important lessons learned is adopting a data-centric approach. When we found out the model were not giving a right type of accuracy, we went back to the data and not to the model. To make sure that the data was actually representative in nature, we use the AI governance and control technique. We're making sure that the data is actually being represented by a lot of means and it's not to be structured and it's got a right kind of balance. The fairness of the model is also ensured, that the data collection was also ensured. So the focus of the data centric model than the kind of model centric model was actually heavily used, which were very important lessons learned. If you look at the constraint of this particular project, these are primarily US and Europe listed companies, which means that the kind of listing requirements will make the companies report in a certain manner, report in risk and financial information in a certain manner. That's the first constraint. Second constraint is going to be accounting standards. So IFRS is the accounting standard which is being generally used. So we are confining to companies specific to IFRS, and non-IFRS companies will probably report the financial information and statement in a very different manner. These are specific to the internal to an organization. There could be various type of external forces which can contribute to bankruptcy. While we are using natural language processing, Finbert to mine the financial sentiment of the organization. But however, this model, this particular AI project, is largely structured information towards the financial ratios, which essentially mean within an organization are the indicators which are showing which the companies can tap into to enable early interventions. More internal rather than external is a major one of the major constraints we can probably say. So in terms of the future of the project, so one stream in terms of structured information from Bloomberg or CapIQ databases, the Azure Data Factory, kind of orchestrating the whole thing and getting into Azure like Gen 2. So trying to orchestrate using MLOps methodology, making sure that the information getting flowed down over a period of time. Then the unstructured information in terms of Finbird, GPT-3, getting information from the reports in terms of the investor reports, the annual reports, and so on and so forth, the various type of internet feeds. So that is all going to be combined into Azure Data Lake Gen 2, and making sure that there's a composite risk score happening in terms of structured and unstructured information. This is going to be this future of work using ML ops. ML ops is going to ensure that the data drift, concept drift is also not happening in a lot of way, and it's actually been monitored. Imagine this particular toolkit is available with bankers, financial institutions, government to enable early intervention. This can actually enable companies to make sure that they don't have an impediment to making sure that they are not falling in the trap of bankruptcy in the future. So in terms of research, there were about four or five major research which focused on deep learning and machine learning techniques, which we have given as a part of my research topic, and there are a lot of references. If you see, not a lot of research has happened in the accounting, AI, the financial ratio space. So, and I think I would use this as one of the opportunities to further the research in this particular area of a discipline. Last but not the least, the kind of requirements for this project would involve Colab Pro Plus, Azure Data Bricks. You get Hugging Face connectors, GPT-3 connectors, and Dash and Azure ML Workspace. So with this, I would like to conclude my overall presentation, and I would like to wish my best wishes to Abu Dhabi AI Summit for a kind of illustrious summit in the future. Thank you.